The mountain village of Karath had seen many seasons pass under the rule of clan leader Borak. His weathered hands told stories of countless battles, and his deep voice commanded respect from every soul in the valley. The stone fortress where he lived overlooked the entire settlement, its walls decorated with the shields of fallen warriors and the banners of conquered enemies. Borak had only one son, Kale, who had just reached his 20th year. Unlike his father, Kale possessed a gentle heart beneath his strong frame. His dark hair caught the sunlight as he practiced sword fighting in the courtyard, but his eyes often wandered to the books in his chamber rather than the weapons on the wall. The young man had been trained as a warrior since childhood, yet he preferred solving problems with words rather than blades. The clan followed ancient traditions that had been passed down for generations. When a leader's son came of age, he must choose a bride from among the maidens of the village. This was not just about marriage, but about proving his readiness to eventually lead the clan. The chosen woman would stand beside him as he learned the ways of leadership and would one day become the clan mother. As autumn approached, Borak announced that the selection ceremony would take place during the harvest festival. The entire village buzzed with excitement and nervousness. Every unmarried woman between 16 and 25 would participate in the ceremony. They would wear their finest clothes, demonstrate their skills in cooking, weaving, and managing a household, and present themselves before Kale for his consideration. Among the maidens was Elena, a blacksmith's daughter with copper-colored hair and bright green eyes. She had grown up alongside Kyle, playing together as children before tradition required them to keep proper distance. Elena was known throughout the village for her quick wit and kind heart. She often helped elderly villagers with their daily tasks and had learned to read and write, which was unusual for women in their clan. Elena's father, Marcus the blacksmith, was proud of his daughter, but worried about the selection. He knew that if Kale chose Elena, their simple life would change forever. She would leave their small house by the forge and move into the great fortress. Marcus had raised Elena alone since his wife died when Elena was just 10 years old. The thought of losing his only child to the complex world of clan politics filled him with dread. The preparation for the ceremony began weeks in advance. The village women taught the participating maidens special dances and songs. They learned about clan history, the proper way to serve important guests, and how to conduct themselves with dignity. Elena excelled at these lessons, but she felt conflicted about the entire process. She had feelings for Kale that went beyond friendship, but she also valued her independence and freedom. Meanwhile, in the lower levels of the fortress, a different story was unfolding. The dungeons held several prisoners, including enemy warriors captured in recent border skirmishes. Among them was a woman named Lyra, who had been brought to the fortress 6 months earlier. Unlike the male prisoners who were kept for ransom or information, Lyra's presence remained a mystery to most villagers. Lyra was not an ordinary prisoner. Her clothes, though now torn and dirty, showed signs of fine craftsmanship. Her hands, though calloused from prison work, had the long fingers of someone who once lived a life of comfort. She spoke multiple languages and demonstrated knowledge that suggested noble birth. Yet she refused to reveal her true identity or explain why she had been found unconscious near the village boundaries. Borak had ordered that Lyra be treated with basic respect but kept securely confined. Something about her seemed familiar to him, but he could not place where he might have seen her before. The woman's age appeared to be around 40, and despite her captivity, she maintained a dignified bearing that commanded attention from the guards. As the festival approached, the entire village transformed. Colorful banners hung from every building, and the smell of special feast preparations filled the air. Merchants arrived from neighboring settlements, bringing goods and news from distant lands. The atmosphere was festive, but beneath the celebration lay the tension of the upcoming selection ceremony. Elena spent her final days of preparation in quiet contemplation. She walked through the village streets, observing the familiar sights that might soon become memories if Cale chose her. The small garden behind her father's smithy, the creek where she had learned to swim, the tree where she and Cale had carved their initials as children, all of these places held deep meaning for her. On the morning before the ceremony, Elena visited the village temple to seek guidance from the ancestors. The old priest, Father Willem, had known her since birth and saw the worry in her eyes. He spoke to her about accepting whatever fate the ceremony would bring and reminded her that love and duty often walked different paths. Unknown to Elena, Cale was also struggling with his feelings about the selection. He had already made his choice in his heart, but he worried about the responsibilities that would come with marriage and eventual leadership. His father had begun teaching him about the complex relationships between their clan and neighboring groups, about trade negotiations and military strategies that seemed overwhelming to the young man. The evening before the ceremony, Borak gathered his council of elders to discuss the upcoming event. These wise men and women had advised clan leaders for decades and understood the importance of choosing the right bride for the future leader. They spoke about the political implications of various choices and the need to strengthen alliances through marriage. However, they also acknowledged that a successful leader needed a partner who could provide emotional support and wise counsel. As night fell over Karath, both Elena and Cale found themselves looking up at the same stars, each wondering what the next day would bring. Neither could have imagined that the ceremony would unveil secrets that had been hidden for years, or that their lives would be forever changed by a revelation that would shake the very foundations of their clan. The stage was set for a selection ceremony that would become legendary in the village's history, though not for the reasons anyone expected. The morning of the selection ceremony dawned clear and bright, with golden sunlight streaming across the village of Karath. Church bells rang out across the valley, calling everyone to gather in the great square before the fortress. Families emerged from their homes dressed in their finest clothing, and the air buzzed with anticipation and nervous energy. Elena woke before sunrise, her stomach churning with anxiety. She bathed in rose water that her neighbor had given her as a good luck gift, then carefully put on the dress her father had commissioned from the village's best seamstress. The deep blue fabric complemented her green eyes, and silver threads woven into the design caught the morning light. Her copper hair was braided with small white flowers, following the tradition for unmarried maidens. Marcus the blacksmith watched his daughter prepare, his heart heavy with both pride and worry. He had spent most of his savings on Elena's dress and accessories, wanting her to look worthy of the clan leader's son. Yet part of him hoped she would not be chosen, so their simple life together could continue unchanged. Across the village, 17 other young women were going through similar preparations. Each family hoped their daughter might catch Cale's eye, as being chosen would bring honor and prosperity to their household. The baker's daughter practiced her curtsy one more time, while the merchant's daughter rehearsed the poem she planned to recite. Each maiden had prepared something special to showcase her talents and personality. In the fortress, Cale stood before a polished bronze mirror as his personal servant helped him into ceremonial robes. The heavy fabric was decorated with the clan's symbol, a golden eagle with wings spread wide. His father had worn these same robes during his own selection ceremony 30 years earlier. The weight of tradition and expectation pressed down on Cale's shoulders like a physical burden. Borak entered his son's chambers, carrying the ancient sword that would be part of the ceremony. The weapon had been passed down through generations of clan leaders, its blade etched with runes that told the story of their family's rise to power. Father and son stood together in silence for a moment, both understanding the significance of what was about to unfold. The ceremony began at midday when the sun reached its highest point. A raised platform had been constructed in the center of the village square, decorated with autumn flowers and clan banners. Borak took his place on an ornate chair that served as a throne, while Kale stood beside him, trying to appear calm despite his racing heart. One by one, the 18 maidens were presented to Kale. Each young woman stepped forward, stated her name and parentage, then demonstrated the skill she had chosen to highlight. The baker's daughter kneaded and shaped bread dough with expert hands. The weaver's daughter showed a tapestry she had created depicting scenes from clan history. The merchant's daughter recited an ancient poem about love and duty, her voice clear and strong. Kale watched each presentation carefully, nodding respectfully and asking thoughtful questions. He complimented the blacksmith's apprentice on her metalwork, praised the farmer's daughter for her knowledge of healing herbs, and thanked the innkeeper's daughter for her beautiful song. The crowd murmured appreciatively at his courteous behavior, noting that he showed respect for all the young women regardless of their social status. When Elena's turn arrived, she stepped forward with grace despite her nervousness. Her voice carried clearly across the square as she introduced herself and spoke about her family's service to the clan. For her demonstration, she had chosen to recite the complete genealogy of the clan leaders, showing her knowledge of their history and traditions. Her recitation was flawless, and she included details that impressed even the eldest council members. As Elena finished speaking, Kyle stepped down from the platform and approached her. This was unexpected, as tradition called for him to remain on the platform during all presentations. The crowd fell silent, sensing that something significant was happening. Kale looked directly into Elena's eyes and spoke words that would be remembered for generations. "Elena, daughter of Marcus, you have shown wisdom, grace, and knowledge that would serve our clan well," he said, his voice carrying across the square. "I have observed your kindness to others and your dedication to learning. If you would accept, I choose you to be my bride and future partner in leading our people." The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Elena felt tears spring to her eyes as she accepted Kyle's proposal with a trembling voice. Marcus beamed with pride despite his mixed emotions. And the other maidens graciously congratulated Elena, though some could not hide their disappointment. But as the celebration reached its peak, an unexpected commotion arose from the direction of the fortress. Guards were shouting orders, and people in the crowd began pointing toward the castle walls. Elena turned to see what was causing the disturbance, and felt her world suddenly shift beneath her feet. A woman was running across the courtyard, her long dark hair streaming behind her, despite the chains that bound her hands. It was Lyra, the mysterious prisoner, and somehow she had escaped from the dungeons. Guards pursued her, but she moved with desperate determination toward the village square where the ceremony was taking place. The crowd parted in confusion as Lyra reached the platform area. Her clothes were the rough brown fabric given to prisoners, and her face showed the pallor of someone who had been kept away from sunlight. But her eyes were focused entirely on Elena, who stood frozen in shock beside Kale. "Elena!" Lyra cried out, her voice breaking with emotion. "My daughter! My precious daughter!" Elena stumbled backward, her hand flying to her throat in disbelief. The woman rushing toward her looked older and thinner than she remembered, but the eyes were unmistakably familiar. They were the same green eyes that Elena saw every morning when she looked in her mirror, the eyes she had inherited from the mother she thought was dead. "Mother," Elena whispered, though her voice was so soft that only those nearest to her could hear the word. Lyra reached the platform despite the guards closing in around her. "Elena, I never stopped looking for you," she gasped, tears streaming down her face. "They told me you had died in the fire that burned our home. I have searched for 15 years, always hoping, always believing you might still be alive." Marcus the blacksmith stepped forward, his face pale with shock and something that might have been guilt. The crowd watched in stunned silence as this impossible reunion unfolded before them. Elena looked between the woman claiming to be her mother and the man who had raised her as his own daughter, her mind struggling to process what was happening. Borak rose from his throne, his expression grim as understanding began to dawn. He recognized Lyra now, not as a random prisoner, but as Lady Lyra of House Nerion, a noblewoman from a distant province who had disappeared years earlier during a period of civil war. If Elena was truly her daughter, then the young woman was not the blacksmith's child at all, but nobility by birth. The guards had reached Lyra by now, but Borak raised his hand to stop them from seizing her. The clan leader's mind was racing as he considered the implications of this revelation. An engagement between his son and a blacksmith's daughter was one thing, but marriage to a woman of noble blood would carry entirely different political consequences. Elena finally found her voice, though it trembled with emotion. "How can this be true?" she asked, looking at Marcus with pleading eyes. "Father, tell me this is some mistake." Marcus closed his eyes and took a deep breath before answering. When he opened them again, they held years of carefully guarded secrets. "Elena, my dear child," he said slowly, "I found you 15 years ago, badly burned and unconscious near the ruins of a manor house. You were so young, and you remembered nothing of your past. I had just lost my own wife and daughter to plague, and His voice broke as he continued. "I could not bear to lose another child. I told everyone you were my daughter who had survived, and I raised you as my own because I loved you from the moment I held you in my arms." The square had become completely silent except for the sound of Lyra's quiet weeping as she gazed at the daughter she had thought was lost forever. Elena stood between two parents, one who had given her life and one who had saved it, while her new fiancé and his father tried to understand how this revelation would change everything they had planned. The silence that had fallen over the village square felt heavier than the mountain air itself. Elena stood frozen between three people who had shaped her life in completely different ways. Marcus, who had raised her with love and devotion. Lyra, the mother she had never known, was alive, and Kyle, whose proposal had just become infinitely more complicated. Borak stepped down from his throne, his experience as a leader telling him that this situation needed careful handling. He gestured for everyone to move to the great hall of the fortress, away from the confused and gossiping crowd. The ceremony that should have ended in celebration had instead uncovered secrets that could reshape the relationships between clans across the entire region. Inside the hall, Lyra was freed from her chains at Borak's command. She sat across from Elena at a long wooden table, drinking in the sight of her daughter with eyes that showed both joy and years of accumulated grief. Elena studied her mother's face, searching for memories that might have been buried by trauma and time. "Tell us your story, Lady Lyra," Borak said formally, using her proper title now that her identity was known. "Help us understand how you came to be separated from your daughter and why you were found near our borders." Lyra took a shaky breath before beginning her tale. 15 years ago, I was Lady Lyra of House Nerion, married to Lord Edmund, and living peacefully with our young daughter in the eastern provinces. Our region became caught up in the civil war between rival claimants to the throne. Our castle was attacked by raiders who burned everything and killed most of our people. She paused, her hands trembling as she continued. I was told that Elena had perished in the fire that consumed our home, along with her father. I barely escaped with my own life. For months afterward, I wandered as a refugee, searching through burned villages and refugee camps, hoping against hope that somehow my daughter had survived. Elena listened with growing amazement as pieces of her earliest memories began to make sense. She had always had nightmares about fire and smoke, dreams that Marcus had attributed to childhood fears. Now she understood they might have been fragments of real experiences her young mind had tried to forget. "I spent years searching," Lyra continued, "following every rumor of children who had been found after battles or disasters. I became obsessed with finding Elena even when everyone told me it was impossible. I learned to fight, to survive on my own, to gather information from travelers and merchants. Eventually, my search brought me to this region." Marcus spoke up, his voice heavy with emotion. "When I found Elena, she was unconscious near the ruins of what must have been your family's hunting lodge. She had burns on her arms and legs, and she remembered nothing. Not her name, not where she came from, nothing. The local healer said the trauma had taken her memories." He looked at Elena with the same love he had always shown her. "My own wife and daughter had just died from the plague that swept through our village that winter. I was consumed with grief, and when I saw this wounded child who needed care—" He paused, struggling with the weight of his choices. "I told people she was my daughter, who had been away during the plague. It seemed like a gift from the gods, a chance to save a life while healing my own broken heart." Elena reached across the table and took Marcus's hand, squeezing it gently. "You gave me a wonderful life," she said softly. "You taught me to read, to think for myself, to value kindness over status. I could not have asked for a better father." Lyra's eyes filled with tears as she watched this exchange. "I am grateful beyond words that you found her and cared for her," she said to Marcus. "You gave my daughter the love and safety I could not provide. But now—" She turned to Elena with hope and uncertainty in her voice. "Now I hope we might have a chance to know each other again." Borak had been listening carefully to every word, his strategic mind working through the implications. "Lady Lyra, your family held significant lands and had treaties with several neighboring clans. If Elena is truly your heir, she would inherit those claims." He looked at his son and Elena thoughtfully. "This changes the nature of the marriage alliance we discussed. Instead of gaining a blacksmith's daughter as a bride, Cale would be marrying into nobility." Cale, who had remained quiet throughout the revelations, finally spoke up. "Father, with respect, I did not choose Elena for her social status. I chose her because of her character, her intelligence and her kindness. Whether she is a blacksmith's daughter or a lady of noble birth, she is still the same person I fell in love with." Elena looked at Kyle with gratitude and growing affection. His words proved that his feelings for her were genuine and not based on what she could bring to his family's political position. But she also felt overwhelmed by the sudden changes to everything she had believed about herself. "I need time to understand all of this," Elena said honestly. "This morning I woke up as Elena the blacksmith's daughter, engaged to be married to Cale. Now I discover I am Elena of House Nerion, with a mother I never knew was alive and claims to lands I have never seen. I do not even know which name is truly mine." Lyra reached across the table and gently touched her daughter's hand. "You were born Elena Nerion, but you have lived as Elena of Karath. You are both, my dear child. You are the daughter I bore, and the woman Marcus helped you become." Over the following days, Elena spent time with both her parents, trying to weave together the torn threads of her identity. Lyra shared stories about Elena's early childhood, how she had loved to collect flowers, her fascination with the horses in their stable, the way she would fall asleep listening to bedtime stories about brave knights and wise queens. Marcus continued to be a steady presence in Elena's life, understanding that his role had changed, but that his love for her remained constant. He worked with Lyra to help Elena recover some of her earliest memories, and slowly, fragments of her life before the fire began to return. Meanwhile, Borak and his council investigated Lyra's claims about her family's lands and titles. Messengers were sent to neighboring regions, and after several weeks, Confirmation arrived that House Nerion's holdings had indeed been left unclaimed since Lord Edmund and Lady Lyra were presumed dead. Elena's survival meant that she could rightfully reclaim her family's estates and position. The revelation also solved the mystery of why Lyra had been found near Carath's borders. She had been tracking rumors about a young woman matching Elena's description who lived in a mountain village. Exhausted from years of searching and weak from illness, she had collapsed while trying to reach the settlement and was found by border guards who assumed she was a spy or refugee. As Elena grew more comfortable with her recovered identity, she and Cale spent time discussing their future together. The political implications of their marriage had grown more complex, but it also offered opportunities for stronger alliances and expanded influence for both their families. "I want you to know," Elena told Cale during one of their walks through the village, "that my feelings for you have not changed, regardless of what titles I might claim. But I also need to visit my family's lands and understand what responsibilities come with my inheritance." Kyle nodded, his respect for Elena's thoughtfulness growing even stronger. "Whatever you decide about your lands and titles, I hope you will still choose to share your life with me. We could work together to build bridges between your family's region and ours, creating peace and prosperity for both our peoples." The story reached its resolution during the winter solstice celebration. Elena had spent months learning about her heritage while maintaining the relationships that had shaped her in Carath. She decided to accept her inheritance, but to use it as a way of strengthening the bonds between the different regions, rather than simply claiming power for herself. At a ceremony attended by representatives from multiple clans and provinces, Elena officially reclaimed her title as Lady Elena of House Nerion. But she also announced that she would maintain her home in Carath and her relationship with Marcus, who had earned the title of honorary elder in recognition of his years of service to the community and his role in raising the region's newest noble. The marriage between Elena and Kyle took place the following spring, creating an alliance that brought stability and prosperity to both regions. Lyra chose to remain in Carath, finally at peace, after years of searching and grateful to be reunited with her daughter. She and Marcus developed a respectful friendship, united by their shared love for Elena and their commitment to supporting her happiness. Elena never forgot the lesson that identity comes not just from birth or blood, but from the choices we make and the love we give and receive. She ruled her inherited lands with the wisdom Marcus had taught her and the strength Lyra had shown her, while building a marriage based on the genuine affection and respect she shared with Kyle. The village of Carath became known throughout the region as a place where lost family members could be reunited and where love could triumph over the complications of politics and social expectations. The story of the selection ceremony that revealed a 15-year-old secret became a legend passed down through generations, reminding people that sometimes the greatest gifts come from the most unexpected discoveries.